Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Pipeline Podcast. I'm your host, Daren Mcclimans. Connor joining us at the exact perfect time. Connor, how are you?
Hey, what's up? Just about made it.
And you made it just in time. I was like,
Nice to
that's
meet you, by the way,
perfect
Matthew.
timing.
Nice to meet you too.
It's absolutely crazy. And we have special guest Matthew. Matthew, how are you?
Good. How are you guys?
I am good. What a week to be talking about superhero movies because Madam Web is here. Everyone's most anticipated
Thank God.
movie.
Greatest film of all time.
Greatest, most popular, no problems. I think everyone just like universally loves this movie. I've heard no complaints.
Oscar winner next year. Oscar.
Oh, 100%. Joker, watch out. Prior to this like film like coming out, I was like, how funny would it be if this is just loved? Like it beats out Joker, it beats out all these Oscar winning movies. It's just like this thing's perfect. Like it's
I mean, you were a champion for it. You were saying you were in the corner for it for a while before it came out.
I cannot tell you how badly I wanted this to be great. Like I wanted to just shock everyone, be like, this is like cinema. This is amazing. And Matthew, you talk a lot about your award shows and stuff, right? Like,
yes, I do.
Was this film on the like were you looking forward to this movie coming out?
Well, I'm a little bit biased. My dad was an extra in the film. They actually lived near my area, so.
Oh hell yeah!
Nice. Yeah, saw my dad briefly, but other than that, it pretty much.
Right. That's amazing.
That's actually really cool.
I had no idea. That's the one good thing we can talk about this movie. That your dad was in it. That's amazing. Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm actually going to be very curious once you kind of dive into that. Like, what our different opinions on this film will be. Obviously, we have a bunch of things to kind of go over prior to that, but like, yeah, no, it's like I think it has this culture around it just like thus far of just like I feel like almost everyone's kind of like excited that it's bad in this kind of weird like culture sphere where everyone's like it's bad and we all knew it was going to be bad, and that's kind of like the culture that's been surrounding it. So I think it's going to be really fun once we kind of dive into that. So yeah, we're just going to be jumping into some headlines this week. Some interesting stuff has come out, so let's talk about it. Ballerina, the John Wick spin-off film, has been delayed from June 2024 to June 2025. Connor, let's start with you here. Were you excited for this one? I think you're a bigger fan of like the John Wick franchise than myself. Where are you kind of with that? With this whole thing?
The John Wick 4 was one of my favorite films of all time. I thought that was an amazing film. I thought that it was just handled so well. See, I was really excited for Ballerina. I mean, I'm still going to see it when it's 2025. Honestly, it was the kind of film that I felt like might get delayed because we just had heard very little about it. We're seeing very little about it. It felt like it was kind of just going to come out of nowhere. Whereas I feel like, it's a spin-off in the John Wick universe. It should get a big marketing push. Like, this film should be put in front of people's faces so they know it's coming out, which I think delaying it to 2025 is a good idea for that reason. Just 2025 is a very stacked year. I'm worried for all those films and how much they're going to make.
Yeah. John Wick, I'll be honest, I'm way behind on the John Wick franchise. I saw the first two and I love those first two, and like, I never had a problem with the 3 and the 4s. I just haven't got around to it. But someone kind of like on the outside, I'll be very curious what you guys think about this. Is like, do you guys have interest in a John Wick franchise without like a John Wick? And like, we heard John Wick was part of the movie, but like, is basing characters within the John Wick franchise an interest to you, or is all the interest based on like John Wick?
I think as long as the action is on par, I think it's worth it.
Okay, fair enough. Matthew, do you have any kind of thoughts on like the John Wick world and like this film? Are you excited for it?
I'm excited for it. Connor literally took the words I was going to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not surprised Lionsgate pushed this back a little bit. For Lionsgate, which is a smaller studio, to do a movie like this, like the John Wick films, is not easy for a smaller studio. So it's probably for the best. It'll probably become better because it's being delayed.
Hopefully, yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely very curious. Again, I will have to get like caught up, and I was kind of hoping like, all right, this will be my chance to kind of get caught up with all two of the movies I missed, and also a show that came out last year.
Continental.
Right?
I actually got to see that a bit early because I was in the Amazon preview program, and I was like, when I first watched I only got the first episode of the program, so I never went back and actually watched the other two when the whole thing came out. But I remember like watching it and being like, this is not too bad of a show. And then it came out and everybody hated it, and I was like, all right, well.
It's a show I didn't hear much talked about. Like it came out, but like, all right, this is coming out next week. And it came out, and like I heard no one mention it. I was like, "Oh, okay. I guess it's not that. I guess there wasn't that hype around it."
Yeah.
Which again might be that thing where I kind of talked about like, well, it's John Wick, but like without the thing that people kind of signed on for. So maybe that's why people didn't have much of an interest. But
it was very stylistic. Because they really like leaned into that 70s feel for the show.
Oh hell yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'll have to get caught up when the time comes, I guess. For the next installment in like the John Wick, and then also they're playing a 5 as well. Like there's rumors about a John Wick 5, which I've talked about on here a bit, where it's like, is that something that people want? Again, I haven't seen it, but from what I heard of the ending of John Wick 4, like, is that something that people still want? It's be very interesting.
I'm not convinced there should be a 5. I think going with like spin-offs like Ballerina is probably the way to go.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, or like a prequel or something.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, we got some people in the chat. He said, "Hey Daren, thoughts on Cecile?" Great question, Cecile from The Flash. I thought she was okay for the first couple seasons, and then kind of went off the rail after a while, I think. Connor, do you have thoughts on
Cecile is my favorite character in The Flash. I think she kind of. I think the show wouldn't be the same without her.
Oh,
for better or worse.
I mean, that's actually a very true fact. It wouldn't be the same without her.
Yeah, it would not be the same.
The final season would be, especially the final season would be.
Yeah. How are they going to beat all their villains? Without Cecile there.
Right. I'd love to see a Tracker spinoff. I don't know what that means.
It's one of the characters in John Wick, isn't it?
Is that a character inside the John Wick franchise? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you get it. I hope you can. I hope you guys get it.
Oh yeah. He was one of the really new additions in 4, but he was a really interesting character.
Okay. Hell yeah. Isn't there like a new show called like Tracker with Justin Hartley, or am I getting that name wrong?
Justin Hartley, yeah.
Okay.
I know what you're talking about.
Isn't it Tracker?
Yeah, it's Tracker.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it like premiered after the Super Bowl, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this guy did well for himself. It's airing after that big event. So
yeah.
Hell yeah. Alrighty, up next on our bracket today, concept art from the Batman Beyond animated film that was pitched last year had come out this week. The internet has exploded on this news, on this story. It feels like we get this kind of thing like every once in a while from like either DC or Marvel, where it's like a thing that almost happened that didn't happen, and people are mad that it didn't happen. Matthew, let's start with you. Just kind of start, like, did you see the show back in the day? Is this something that like you would have liked to have seen?
I did grow up with the show. I would love to see the movie of it. I did grow up with it. I kind of love and hate when studios release concept art of things that didn't happen, because it just makes me want it even more.
Right.
It's like, hey, look at this beautiful artwork that you'll never see again. But yeah, this is something I would love to see happen. I know it's not, but...
Yeah, this is a story we started talking about back in the summer, where, it was first announced that they wanted. Throughout the years, we've heard so many versions of like a Batman Beyond movie with, we've had the Michael Keaton stuff and with your Batgirl and, all these like different things. And just based off these photos, I would like, this looks great. I think this, it looks very like cinema. Like it looks like a piece of art, and it seems like, I think that's what I think DC kind of does at its best, is like your Joker and like your the Batman and your Man of Steel, where it's like, this is if you like the character or not, these are very well made, very well put together films. Obviously, there's a lot of inspiration. I don't even want to say like inspiration, but like you're definitely drawing from the like Across the Spider-Verse type stuff. in this kind of new generation of like animated films, you know, like your Ninja Turtles and your Puss in Boots that a lot of these are going with. I would have liked to have seen it. Like, I keep saying I don't want as much of your like Batman stuff, but like I would have been down for this. I guess it's better because it's not like a Bruce Wayne. It's like a different character. For sure. So
like focus on Terry.
Right.
Yeah, no, I think this would be really cool. I think this is the kind of projects DC should be making. Things that would do well in theaters and cinemas that would kind of help the brand get its name out there a little bit more, so that like people are more inclined to go see DC films no matter what, the way they are with Marvel. But I think it looks really cool as well. Like, it looks very stylistic. It looks like something you can already see this being in a cinema, like on a big screen in front of you. It's really, really, really well put together concept art in my ways. Because even though this is concept art, it looks like a screenshot from a film. It looks like a poster or a screenshot from a film that you just want to see. So I'm hoping that James Gunn will start to make these kind of projects now, because we've heard that it never got pitched to him. It just got turned down before it got to him, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think hopefully he'll turn around and start making projects like this. Because I think like making like a Batman Beyond project like this, a Superman Smashes the Clan project, like a Wonder Woman stylistic cartoon, like a lot of these things could be really, really, really cool.
Right. I also think like probably the time they pitched this was probably the worst possible time they could have pitched a project like this.
Yeah, when the regime was changing.
Right, like James Gunn had just kind of he hadn't even been there like 6 months yet. He was getting his stuff together. They're trying to make this entire new slate, so probably pitching Elseworld stories right now probably isn't the best. Although you'll hear things about like your Elseworld, like Superman film that's still happening and all this kind of stuff, where it's like, okay, I don't know, like, you know, your Constantine 2 and stuff like this, and I'd say like I'd prefer this over like a Constantine.
Oh, I for sure would as well.
Like, so it'll be very interesting. Like again, I think once we get like established a little bit, maybe we're 3 to 4 or 5 years into like your James Gunn DCU, then they can start making more risks again. Once you got kind of the brand back on like DC's side a bit more, where it's like, oh yeah, we love DC movies, then you could be more creative with what you're putting out. And
absolutely.
You could be a lot more risky. But like I say that, but like then there you have like your authorities and stuff like that, where it's like, oh, that's a very risky project. Like this would be less risky than like an authority or like, you know, your Swamp Things and stuff like that.
Yeah, or even Creature Commandos.
Creatures is very risky. Right.
We'll see who buys Warner Brothers, then we can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when Paramount takes over, we'll see what happens.
My money's on Universal.
Yeah, I can see that. Universal seems like the only, other than Disney and Apple, the only studio that doesn't seem to like be losing all of their money at the moment.
Yeah, Netflix is also rumored to buy them, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Right.
If Netflix get a hold of the DCU, it'll be interesting to see what they do with it.
I'd be a little worried about that because Netflix aren't crazy about releasing things in theaters.
Well, they're gonna have to. If they're buying Warner Brothers, they're gonna have to.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, all that stuff is always very scary when you have like all these companies kind of buying out each other. It's like, yeah, but I like when you got all these different companies and they can put all their different things. Like you have like Disney up there being like, we're taking this, we're taking this, we're taking this, and it's just giant. Like, oh my gosh, it's so much stuff. But
we have a pile of money to burn, though. We can't just leave money sitting there.
Yeah, that's true. I'm trying to think. It like is okay. So if this show was a go, or this movie was like a go, like what would you guys want to see in a film like this? Because I'm not someone that like grew up with that show. I don't think I've seen any of it. I want to get to it at some point. I just haven't got around to it. But like, what's something that you would have liked to have seen?
Well, I think it would have to be like an origin story beginning for Terry, for people based on you who haven't seen the show. Because like the show was good, it was popular, but it's also 25 years old at this point.
Yeah,
so like you need to be bringing in a completely new audience that doesn't have the basis of the TV show.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It has to be an origin story. It just has to.
Something new. Right. Michael Keaton, though, as your old Batman, just bring him in to voice act, maybe.
That'd be cool.
I would be okay with that.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. Yeah. Draven in the chat. Draven, how's it going, buddy? Hope you're doing well. Alrighty. Speaking of older actors, Nicolas Cage is rumored to be reprising his role as Spider-Man Noir for the Amazon Spider-Man Noir series. This is an update, and we have a couple updates surrounding the Sony Spider-Verse stuff that we can talk about. First, I feel like I have a bunch of questions when it comes to this story. But Connor, let's start with you. Are you a fan of this character? Are you a fan of what he did over in your Spider-Verse and your stuff like that?
I think it's really cool. I think it's new and it's different. But I'd be lying if I said in Into the Spider-Verse, the extra spider characters that came in were my least favorite part of the film. Sure. I was much more into Miles, Gwen, and Peter than all the extra ones came in later on. So I'm sure it'll be cool. I definitely watch it, but it's not something that, I'm screaming, we got to see it. We got to see it right now, sort of thing,
Right. I think this is a weird one because I'm very curious, what would it be? Is this a spin-off to your Spider-Verse movies? Is this that version of the character but in live action? Is this completely separate with just Nicholas coming in and doing that role, a second time? Does any of that even matter? Or are we going to do anything with that? I'd be very curious if he does officially sign on to do it. What that would all kind of entail. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Nicolas Cage has said before he wants to do more TV roles.
Yeah.
This is not what he probably meant originally. I can't imagine him when he said he wanted to do TV was to put one of his movie roles on TV. I don't think
right.
Yeah.
I have no idea what the show's going to be now with all this, so I'm curious. It needs some sort of direction. I hope we get that sooner rather than later.
Right. I do think, and just based on the TV stuff that's been announced, this show and your Soak, I'm 10 times more excited for those projects than anything the movies are currently
for sure
working on. Those just sound like what I want them to be doing. They feel we have access to these other Spider characters. That's what I want, and it's what I thought. Matter what, we can talk about our opinions on that movie, but I do think that they were at least going in that right direction with the characters that they were choosing to do stories about. I think I'd rather them do that and fail than your Morbius and your characters that I don't necessarily think can hold their own film. So this would be very exciting. I'd be curious if it's set in the... Again, is it set in your Sonyverse? Is this a project that's there? They've said that... Right. They've said that it isn't Peter Parker, that it's a different version of the character. So, we'll see. We'll see. I'd be very interested.
I think a very episodic kind of 1950s sort of detective show focused around this character would be really, really, really cool.
Sure.
That's probably... I can't think of a single kind of, DC or Marvel property that has done something like that. It would feel a little bit like Sin City, I guess, in a way, if any of you've seen that.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be cool.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I just want to know what the heck the show
is. For sure.
Right.
Absolutely.
I also think where it's at is very interesting because I think Amazon has been putting... they put out good superhero content. I don't know if they've ever done a superhero show where it's I don't know about this. Your Boys and your Invincible and your Tick, I even heard was a really good show.
Tick is
really good.
All these shows. So I'm down if, again, I even said the other day where it's I'd honestly be okay if maybe they started over with their Sonyverse with one of these projects where it's all right, these films aren't working, let's start something new. If is Nicolas Cage your new Superman or your new Spider-Man? I'm not sure. I'd that'd be an interesting direction, but I guess I wouldn't be against it either. I think it's better than what we're currently doing, so we'll see, I guess.
No, for sure. Lean into what worked and what people like, and people liked stuff from Spider-Verse, so.
Oh, and yeah, even just that, that's what I would I think Spider-Verse is such a goldmine of content of just like, hey, just pick one of those characters and like do films on them. Like obviously you have so many Spider people. Like if the MCU is doing your Peter Parker, that's totally fine. You could do a Spider Woman, you could do a Spider Gwen, you could do a Ham, you could do a Noir. Like there's all these different characters. Literally, so many Spider-Man. And like what those films I think does, like what I think they do such a good job at doing is like we have such like little runtimes with these characters, and they make us care about them in like such a great way. Where it's like, imagine if we just had a whole movie with them, and how much we'd love them after like an entire film or like an entire show. Like, I think that'd be really cool. Very cool indeed. All right, another question here. What's your favorite DC characters? Mine's Flash, Superman, Supergirl, Brainiac, and Dreamer. Do we have favorite DC characters?
Superman and Green Arrow. Come on.
Well,
just kidding.
Well, I have a Superman and a Batman costume in my closet.
Oh, cool.
Oh, yeah.
For every award show, I dress up as a different superhero.
Nice.
Oh, hell yeah.
So.
Favorite super... I mean, Flash has been up there for, like, years, but I think... Like, I'm not sure how much of my love for the Flash is based on, like, the show over the years and my attachment to the show, and how much of it's, like, in general. So Superman probably is my favorite, like, overall, like, because, like, I love so many different versions of the character. Well, like, the Flash is, like, I like a couple of those characters, like, versions I've seen, but, like, Flash is, like, I love Smallville, and I love the Arrowverse, and I love, you know, like, the animated stuff, and, like, Reeves. Like, there's so many versions of the character that I love that I think he has slowly been my favorite superhero, just like over time. So yeah. Up next, I can't believe Anthony came back to Smosh 4 weeks after the Arrowverse ended. Are we Smosh fans here? Have we watched that?
Never watched it.
I've watched it. I wouldn't consider myself a fan though.
Sure. I was like a post like COVID fan of theirs. So, like, him coming back, like, I didn't grow up on their stuff. It was more of, like, a later type thing where it's like, oh, yeah, he's back now. Okay, that's cool, I guess.
He's here now.
Yeah.
He's here now. But I do think that just whole story about, like, him coming back is one of the most insane stories ever. Like, just his journey of, like, getting owned by this big company, leaving, and then them leave, like that company getting shut down, them redoing Smosh, and then all these years later, him coming back to the company as they buy it back themselves. Like, it's such a interesting story.
Yeah.
That's always very fun to talk about. Alrighty. A Mandalorian Star Wars game, Bounty Hunter game, is in the works. Connor, I'm gonna throw this one to you because you're a much bigger gamer than I, much bigger Star Wars fan than I as well. I mean, so.
I fall in and out of love with Star Wars a lot. Like I really did grow up absolutely loving it, but I think once the new kind of generation of Star Wars started coming out, it was very much dependent on the project for me. Like, if I was really into the project, like Andor, Rogue One, Force Awakens, Mandalorian, I was in love with Star Wars whenever it was coming out. But if I wasn't really into the project, it was like, yeah, whatever. But no, I think this would be really cool. I think it's Respawn, so same people who did Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor. So they make good games. They make really cool kind of story-focused first-person games, or not first-person games. It's just story-focused single-player games. So I think whatever they do, I'd be there for it. I think it'll be really cool. I'm wondering whether this comes out to line up with the movie. Like, is that thing? Also, I didn't read too much into it, but is this supposed to be based on Din Djarin and Grogu, or is this kind of just, they're just calling it a Star Wars Mandalorian game and it's about whoever? Because there was a Star Wars Mandalorian game in production before called 1313, which they canceled that when all the Star Wars changes started happening and Disney kind of took over. But that was just going to be like a very focused Mandalorian bounty hunter Star Wars game set on Coruscant and set kind of in the Star Wars underworld. So I wonder if this is maybe a new version of that. And then they're kind of just translating it to more modern day. But I'd be really into it. I just kind of would need to see some gameplay. With games, I always feel like I need to see gameplay before I get too excited for them, mature into them, because sometimes games, what they sound like and what they actually are two completely different things. But yeah, New Star Wars games are always a good thing. I can't really think of a Star Wars game that I've played that I don't like. Like, I love Battlefront, the original 2 Battlefronts. I love Battlefront 2015. I love Battlefront 2. I love Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor. Even Star Wars Squadrons was really cool. So,
right. I mean, kind of like someone on the outside of both gaming and your Star Wars, like, if I was to pitch like a Star Wars game, I feel like this is a very good character to use for like a gaming style. Just like your bounty hunter, you have your like shootout type games, and just as a bounty hunter, like you could just go, oh, you have to go here and fetch this character and bring it to this character. Like that's such a good like format for a game. Oh, you have to get money, so you have to go to the tavern and all this kind of stuff. Oh, you're out of food, so you have to go here. Like it seems like there could be a lot of fun things to do, and I would be very curious if is it based on like the game, or is it kind of like or is it based on like the show, or is it based on another new character that we haven't seen, someone that we're following for the first time?
I would hope it would be a new character, because I think having it based on I feel like always trying to try in your games, TV shows, and movies generally tends to either mean that they're completely different, like the way the Wolverine Origins game was completely different to the actual movie, or they're too similar to the point where both of them are bad because they're trying to design them together. Because like video game and film and TV production times are completely different to the point where you can never really develop a game that is supposed to match a TV show and movie and have them be identical. But it also it just like it could be like Red Dead Redemption in the Star Wars universe, which sounds really cool. It's like that would be awesome if they wanted to do something like that. Because the Jedi games from Respawn are very lightsaber combat focused and force focused. So I would like to see how they translate to a Star Wars universe where you're maybe using a gun against a lightsaber or something like that.
Right.
But, yeah.
I mean, just as someone who hasn't like started that game yet, that sounds incredibly hype. Which is like that style of game mixed with like your Star Wars and like your different planets and stuff like that. That sounds incredibly hype.
You're gonna love it.
I really want to start. I have so many games I have to play first, but I'm super hyped to jump into that. I think I'll really love it. Matthew, do you have any thoughts on this whole thing?
I'm not a gamer person either, but I did grow up with Star Wars Battlefront.
Yeah.
Nice.
This does make perfect sense. I'm surprised Disney hasn't developed this sooner.
I would have done it sooner. Like I would have done it when it was more in its popularity peak.
Like because I do 1 season 2. That's when I went.
Right.
Down.
Yeah.
Right. Because now, obviously, it still has its fans, but there are a lot of hardcore fans that are kind of like, I'm not as into the show, or I'm falling off the show after season 3.
There's so many now Disney Star Wars shows nowadays. It's like it used to be just The Mandalorian. Now we have Andor, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like,
yeah. I think a lot of those, as someone that isn't as into the world of Star Wars, like, I think a lot of those probably should have been films. Like, I think a lot of those would have done much better if it was like inside a theater and sit down with popcorn on Christmas Day and that type of thing. Because I think, again, someone on the outside, like, I think that was kind of the hype of Star Wars, is like going around Christmas with the whole family, like this big, massive event with all your surround sounds. And not to say you can't have your shows, right? Because Marvel's inside the same kind of boat currently, but like, I don't know, I do feel like that does take away a little bit of the hype around the like Star Wars, the like Star Wars fandom of it.
Yeah, the Obi-Wan Kenobi miniseries you could put into a movie.
For sure.
Easily.
That was my main complaint with it, was it felt like it dragged out a little bit too long.
Yeah, but like Andor, like I would have kept it a TV show.
Andor was great for a show. Boba Fett should have been a movie.
Yeah.
And I think different, like make it a bit different than what they kind of went with it. I think kind of tying it to like your like Mando kind of takes away from it being a like Boba Fett series. So
yeah, agreed.
So yeah,
I think for just one last thing on the game is I think they probably did want this to be out around the time of season 1 and 2, but I think the only 2 studios that Disney are really using for their Star Wars games are EA Dice and Respawn. And EA Dice was busy with Battlefront games and worked a little bit on Squadrons, and then Respawn was working on Fallen Order and then Jedi Survivor. And Fallen Order came out right around the time Mandalorian season 1 came out, and then jumped straight into Jedi Survivor to develop it after that. So I think Respawn just have been busy with the Jedi games, which is probably why we didn't see this sooner. And now they're free after Jedi Survivor came out. They're done giving it support. So now they can finally jump into this and start working on this.
Right. Yeah, I hope it's good.
Same. Hope it's good.
Same.
I probably won't play it, but I hope it's good.
I'm not a big gamer. I really do hope it's good for the people who are.
Right? I mean, I'm not against playing it. Like, I haven't played any of the other ones, even though, like, I kind of want to, though. Like, there's some that look like a lot of fun. I just too many games to try out for the first time.
There's a lot of games.
There's
so many good games. Alrighty. Jose in the chat. I'm gonna watch the live action Avatar right now. Anybody else watching? I am so excited. I can't help it. I've heard people have come out and said some things. There's been some things out with it. I'm still incredibly excited though. Like, I think I'm excited to see why people are so concerned and so kind of upset with it, because I think that's kind of the fun of something like this, where it's like, I've heard a lot of this works, but a lot of it does not work.
No,
Connor, you've been going through the show, right? Are you?
The anime for the first time. No, I'm on season 2. So
Connor.
I'm going to finish my Star Trek rewatch next week, and then I'm going to jump right into finishing Avatar. Then I'm going to do the live action show.
I'm so excited for you. How are you kind of like what's that journey been like, as someone who's kind of heard about the show over the years? Obviously, I bet you've heard the hype that everyone has given the show.
Yeah, I see it constantly listed on like best shows of all time and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I thought season 1 was good, but it didn't reach the recommendations I kind of hear about the show. But season 2, I've been enjoying a lot more.
Yeah,
I think again, it's like really good.
Yeah, you'll notice as you get to season 3 and then season 4.
On my first watch of it, like, I thought Bookworm was like, okay, this is really good, but it, it's not as hype as I hear. And I think from that, like the midpoint of season 2 onward, it's just like, oh, this is one of the greatest things I've ever seen. And I think it has that like Agents of Shield effect, where like once you look back on the first season, it's like, oh, this season was like fundamentally so important for what was needed for 2 and 3. And I'm so excited for you to get the season 3, because I do think season 3 might be one of the greatest seasons of TV I've ever seen. Like, it's really good. So I know I'm very curious to kind of hear what your thoughts are. Matt, are you a fan of that world?
I love Avatar, but I'm too nervous to see the live action series. It's like One Piece when they did the live action that came out last year. It's like, I love the show, but I'm so nervous to see it.
Oh, I loved theirs.
Theirs was great, but I'm saying that I'm still nervous to see.
Sure, that's fair. And again, I've heard very mixed. Like, I am kind of nervous for what we're going to do. Like, I think, okay, so I finished my rewatch yesterday, and then I was like, I'm gonna bite the bullet, and I'm gonna put on that Stingy movie to see how bad it was. I couldn't finish it. I got like 35 minutes in. I was like, I can't do this. I can't do it.
I'm gonna try and do the movie once I do the finish the anime show. I'm gonna force myself through that movie.
It's so Like, I also chose the worst time, because like the final episode of the show is one of the greatest episodes of TV. Yeah. Like, it's so good. And then the movie is just like, oh, you just took a doo-doo on everything that the TV show was. Like, this is rough.
Make sure you have bleach for your eyes when you watch it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's so frustrating, because they clearly didn't watch the show. Like, they get all the characters' names wrong. The characters look nothing like they did previously. Like, I'm pretty sure they try to fit the 3 seasons of a show into like a movie, and it's like, and like an hour and a half is like, why would you do that? Why would you? like there's so many adventures I feel like you could just like, this was one of the journeys that they went on that we didn't see. Like, I feel like that would have been such a better approach, because I think just the style of that show works very well. It's like, okay, they went to a city and then Zuko attacks, and then, just kind of tell that story. But nope, they didn't do that. So, but no, I am very excited. Right after this, I think I'm just gonna start watching it. I'm nervous, but I'm also very hyped. Like, I love the look of the cast. I think just based off like the trailers and stuff, I think it looks gorgeous. Like, I love all the special effects and stuff like that. It just, I think it's the character stuff that I'm a bit worried about. Yeah. Alrighty. Let's move on to our next topic here. Mr. Joker 2, the Joker sequel will have a budget of $200 million. Matthew, let's start with you.
I was hoping you would come to me first.
I mean, what's your opinion on that first Joker film? Are you a fan of it?
I am a fan of it. I think it's really good considering what Todd Phillips has done for the past couple of years.
Hey, the Hangover trilogy is great.
Yeah, well, the first one is really good. The other two, we don't talk about those other two. But yeah, I'm surprised it has 200 million. But when I saw the pictures, I'm like, okay, it makes sense. They're going for the 1950s and 60s Hollywood glam. It's very Fosse like that's the vibe I'm getting. Very, very classical. This is something that's going to appeal to award voters right away.
Yeah, for sure.
It reminds me of La La Land, like it was modern day, but still embraced the classic musicals back in the day. And it seems like I'm getting that same vibe.
Yeah, I hear you. I do. I also think 200 million for Joker is kind of insane, though.
Oh no, I didn't say it wasn't insane.
For a studio that's trying so hard to save money and keeps saying they can't put out other films because they're too broke, paying 200 million for a Joker sequel is bonkers.
They're trying to be like, hey, look at us, previous potential.
Yeah.
Just look at us. We have all these big head projects. Look at us, But yeah, I definitely think the award is definitely going to pay off for sure.
Sure,
it's going to get a lot of Oscar nominations. Lady Gaga's probably going to win Best Actress next year.
Right.
So,
I'm actually very curious how fans are going to go with this one because I do think Joker came out at such an interesting time where that film I never expected to do nearly as well as it did, and everyone showed up for it. If people show up again, alrighty, that's fine. That they made their all their money back, and it was this massive thing, and it looks beautiful, and you know what, fair enough. But I think with the current track record of Hollywood and the main message I kept preaching on here, and everyone else on here was saying make movies cheaper. Not everything has to be $200 million, 300, sometimes 400. They were, and some of it was COVID, and then some of it was all these different things. But yeah, no, I think this is a ridiculous number, and I don't know how much of to be fair, this was kind of a thing prior to James Gunn coming in, right? I think this was announced a while ago, so maybe going forward we'll have smaller budgets, but
yeah, this was announced the day before the Oscars,
Yeah.
And this was way before
early 2019 or late 2018. Yeah. So something pretty ridiculous like that. But I mean, I completely agree with what you were saying, Matthew, that I think that most of this budget is just for the production design, that they're really gonna they're trying to get authentic costumes, authentic look. They want us to feel like you're in this era, or you're you're journeying through sort of the classic feel for the movies of this era. I just think going from 60 million to 200 million is an insane jump. It's a lot of extra money to be spending on this. And then that's not even counting, I assume, the marketing on top of it, which they'll probably push a lot for marketing, especially if they want this to be an Oscar film. So
marketing is probably at least another 100 million.
Yeah, I'd say so. Which 300 million for a Joker sequel is crazy. Crazy number.
And Joker is one listen, these superhero movies are sometimes going to cost a lot, and I understand that, but Joker is that one where it's you can make this for a cheap amount of money. You could do something really cool here, and I think again going forward, I would not shocked if Superman was 150 million or something, if they try to do something a bit smaller for that, it may be. We have all these characters, but maybe it's smaller in scale than your average superhero movie. And the Batman was 180 million. It's how did they do that on that budget? And then you have 200. And again, I don't know. I would assume a lot of it is the sets, and it is maybe the music. I don't know.
Walking X is getting 20 million.
Okay. And then Lady Gaga is going to get a big chunk as well.
Yeah, it's getting 12 million.
Okay.
So
interesting. And I think I think they're putting all their eggs in the one basket with this film. I think they're really banking on it not being a flop, or they're banking on this being a billion film, the same way the first film was. But the thing with the first film, there was so much controversy surrounding that first film that really pushed it into the public mind in a way that it wouldn't have otherwise. Like,
well, you don't know if the second one is going to have controversy.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Right.
I think they're playing. Warner Bros. Usually plays it too safe. I think this is one time where they're playing it too dangerously. Where if this film doesn't do well, we might not even see Superman Legacy if this film tanks. They might be like, we got to sell all our DC stuff for tax write-offs.
Yeah. Well, and then if this does well, that'll make potential buyers in the studio be like, "Oh wow, they know what they're doing."
Right.
Yeah.
It's a huge risk, but if they pull it off, they're gonna really pull it off.
When does this come out? Is it October?
Yeah. Same as the first film.
It comes out around the same week as the first film too. So
yeah, I'm just trying to see what else is coming out around that time. I think we have Joker 3, which I think Venom 3. Venom 3 is what I mean. Which I think this will do better than Venom 3.
Oh god, yeah. Not
although if Spider-Man's in it, it might not, but I don't think he is.
I will say, I saw the first Joker movie, thought it was great, but never thought it would be a 11 Oscar nominated film.
Yeah, same.
Like when Todd Phillips got in for director with the Golden Globes, I'm like, okay, this is the beginning of the end.
Okay, I'm not. Oh, Terrifier is coming out then. It looks like.
Does that normally do well?
I think they do okay, but I think they're like super like low budget. Like they're
okay.
So I think it does well within their budget. Like it does like a really well for what they needed to do.
I think even like 500 million, I would consider that an excess.
Right.
Success.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like there's a lot lined up. Like Joker, I mean, you're like Venom 3. There's a White Bird. I don't know what that is. Wolfman. It doesn't seem like it's going to be like a massive month, but we'll see. We'll see. Terrifier 3, Venom 3.
Yeah, Terrifier 2 did unbelievably well. Like they went from 250,000 for the first film to 15 million. And it was so gross they had to have bark bags in the theaters. I'm not kidding with you. That's an actual story.
I forgot that they're doing a second Gladiator film. I completely forgot about that.
I'm really excited for that. I think that's
I'm very hyped about it. It's weird. It's like the year of the sequels at the Oscars.
Yeah.
Dune 2. Gladiator 2. There's even Clint Eastwood's last film named Juror Number 2. So.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that as well. I think that's going to be cool.
Me too. I love Nicholas Hoult, so I'm definitely
Ragu in the chat said R-rated films rarely make $1 billion though. Deadpool 3 might be an exception. I do agree with that. I think if they market it right, which they will, it's Ryan. He's gonna market it amazingly. I think it could. The only reason I'm scared about that is because that month is insane. Like you have your Despicable Me 3 and you have this and you have something else big as well that's coming out that month.
The other thing with that is I think Despicable 3 and Deadpool 3 are mostly pretty different in terms of the audiences.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
So I think that might be fine where they both steer clear of each other's markets.
I could definitely see it where like the mom and the kid go to see the one and like the dad and his friends go to see the other. So you're getting both of those markets maybe. To be kind of cool. But yeah, I mean I definitely don't think it's getting as much as the first one. Like I'd be very shocked if it's it's inside the $1 billion club. But
I looked up what's coming out that month. Twisters is coming out.
October. Oh, interesting.
No, in July.
Oh,
because we were talking about Deadpool.
Gotcha.
And then the new Beverly Hills Cop, which is Netflix, so we don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
But yeah, July is definitely a lot more crowded than October.
Right. I'm so curious how Twister is gonna do because like I saw some hype around it, but like, is it on the like level as like your like Top Gun?
Whereas, I don't think so.
Like I don't know if there's that many like huge Twister fans.
I think Top Gun is more ingrained in like the pop culture of everyone, whereas Twister is a little bit more obscure.
Right. I still can't believe how well that film did, though. Like, I was shocked how well Yearly Top Gun made. I was like,
Tom Cruise, man, he just pushes for films, and he
don't know how
when he wants to.
I don't know how they pulled that off. That whole story is crazy to me.
I agree with that.
Alrighty. Up next here, over on the CW, the call to end Superman and Lois came from Warner Brothers and not the CW. Connor, our little corner of like the CW world, kind of blew up this week.
Yeah.
We're slowly kind of getting into this final season. It comes out this fall. So we're starting to get little like tidbits of this upcoming season. Obviously, This is a topic we've talked about a lot, but Superman and Lois in the final season. What's your kind of thoughts on this? Are you mad? Are you angered by this? Do you think it's good they're ending?
I'm more so like surprised that WB are still doing this, but also this news story like officially hit Discussing Film and that on Saturday night. It had come out a few days before then, because I saw it on some of the Superman and Lois pages a few days before then, around I think it was like Thursday or Friday, or not Thursday, like Wednesday or Thursday. So it would have been out a few days, but people were dismissing it, being like, no, it's probably not true. It's probably not much to talk about. And then it hit Discussing Film, and everyone was straight away like, oh my God, like I can't believe they did this. And I'm not surprised, I guess, because it's Warner Brothers and it's DC, and messing with their properties is like their go-to move all the time. It's like it's funny it's happening to Superman now, when before it was always Batman characters it would happen to, but now it's Batman gets to have two versions, while Superman gets to have the J.J. Abrams film legacy and not their TV show that is bringing in people into the Superman sphere who might not have been in that otherwise. I part of me is like, maybe Brad Schwartz is just saying this to kind of take the heat off of him when Superman Lois ends this year. But like, I was looking into that article a lot because I did a video on it, and I was kind of thinking about how like All American Homecoming, Walker, and Superman Lois were the four biggest shows for the CW. Three of them are in talks to get another season. The one that's not is Superman and Lois. So I feel like it is strange that Superman and Lois is the one show in the CW that did so well that is not being talked about being renewed at all. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's because people at DC stepped in and are like, we need Superman Legacy to be the only real face of Superman we're seeing at the moment, especially in live action. It's annoying because DC seems to shoot themselves in the foot a lot when there's no reason to. So,
right. Yeah, I mean, it's been rough. I think the like CW fans, this is not new to us. Like, especially back when we did Arrow. Like Arrow, you would have like your Suicide Squad. You would have your like Deathstroke back in season 6. Like, we had heard that like Deathstroke, like his son was supposed to be the villain of the season, but they had to scrap it. And then they're like, oh, we have to rush this other villain that maybe wasn't supposed to be the main villain. And like, we've dealt with this over and over again, and it is very frustrating that we have to go with this. I do think, and I will say, I do think ending at season 4 was probably the smart move, and would have been the move I would have made either way, because I do think after what happened with Stargirl, what happened with Legends, what happened with your Batwoman, what happened to all these other canceled shows, I think ending it while you have a chance to end it was their best move.
Yeah.
But like, I hate that it wasn't their choice to make. That's the upsetting part. It wasn't on a creative side of being like, well, we think it would be best if this and this and this happened. It's like, well, we're ending it. Here's your 10 episodes and then get out type of thing, which is very irritating. And we had talked about over these last couple of weeks of like, but if we had that season 5, maybe we could have done a Death of Superman. Maybe we could have done this and this and this because we had more time. What would have a season 5 have looked like? We'll see. I don't know. I'm still very happy that not happy it's ending, but I am very happy they're getting to end on their own terms, in a sense, where they know ahead of time it's their final season. They get to wrap it up the way they want to. I think there is a happiness there, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's good that they kind of, we're not going to get a cliffhanger, because I still think, even though I'm so glad we got a season 4, I still think ending season 3 on that cliffhanger was so dangerous when they saw every other DC show get cancelled and we're like, no, we'll be fine, don't worry about it. And like, to their credit, they were, but super possible that they got cancelled with season 3 like everything else.
Right. I mean, I was shocked when
I was sure they were done.
I was like, there's no way they get a fourth and final season. There's no way. And like, I was celebrating when it was announced that it was going to be a final season because I was just beyond happy that they got the opportunity that so many others didn't. And like, now I think I actually forgot to talk about it last week, or maybe it was like this past week. But they're like, well, now we're actually just like, we don't want to like we're getting back to doing these shows again, and like now we're not just canceling stuff. It's like, where was this attitude a year ago when you took out 50% of your shows? Like, you could have kept Stargirl around if this was the case. I don't know if James Gunn's using Stargirl. Like, that would have been great.
I would imagine.
I love Stargirl was so good. I would love if it got to come back, but no, I get it. I mean, do you think there is, like, do you guys think there is a fear with having multiple versions of characters? Like, do you think your casual audiences are like, wait, Superman's there, but he's on the CW, and then he's there, same as like your Batman. Like, we have 2 of these like Batman films. Do you think that's a valid take, or do you think that fans are smarter?
I mean, we did hear, like, one of the first things when Superman Lois came out was a lot of people thinking it was a sequel to Smallville. So I do think
that's true because the WB became so I understand that.
I think sometimes it's a little unclear for certain people.
Sure.
But I think in general, though, it's never a bad thing to have more than one version of your character. Like, I think it gets them in the public mind more. Like, I think if you didn't have as many Batman animated shows on around the same time, Batman wouldn't be as popular as he is.
Right.
So.
I feel like even Warner Brothers didn't say anything. I think the CW would have done this anyway.
Yeah.
The thing with the CW, it's in what I call the spare parts phase of its network, which means they're trying to trim their budget so small, and eventually those 3 popular shows will probably be sold off to other networks. And then the show, and then the network itself will be shut down.
Right.
You kind of just seeing it's at the spare parts point of its life.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think that they're definitely at a point where like, oh right, we don't have that much left on our market, and I think they're slowly trying to get some shows back. Like, they keep announcing all this new stuff, and I think most of the built-in fan, because I think CW did have a certain bit of like a built-in fan base. Like with a lot of their shows. I've been watching, like people like us that were watching for like 10 or so years. We're like, well, there's this new show. Maybe I'll check it out if I want to, because I see all the promos on when I'm watching like The Flash or, whatever that is. I think a lot of that faith is now gone because you canceled everything that we loved. And like, it's not like 1 or 2 things that canceled a year. Like, they literally went through and canceled 15, 16, 17 shows in bulk. Which is absurd. Like, if I was them, I would have been, okay, 5 this year, and then 5 next year, and slowly kind of go down until there's nothing left.
Or just end them. Like, don't even like cancel them. Just like be like, okay, you end this year, you get to end next year.
We can give you 5 episodes, just end it.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Yeah, so it's definitely CW will be shut down within a year or so from now.
I don't know if golf is doing what they want for it.
I don't think the Critics' Choice is doing that well for it either.
No. It's a weird choice. The weird stuff over at the CW, but I'm excited for that final season. I'm excited to see what they do there, and hopefully it's good. All right, up next, Avengers 5, the massive news story this week. So this is a story I've talked about here for a while. I mean, almost this whole year has been kind of leading up to this story. I feel like all the way. And what a crazy 2023 was such a crazy year for Kang the Conqueror as a character. Like, you start the year with like your Ant-Man, and you're like, all right, this is his first major film. Like, this is his obviously he was prior in Loki, but this is his big moment, his breakout point. And that came out. A lot of people didn't like it. Some people loved him. Some people didn't. And obviously all of the controversies and him and Loki. Like, it was a really crazy kind of year for that character. Matthew, let's start with you. What's your thoughts on just this entire situation with Kang and what Marvel's doing with like their mainstream storyline, I guess?
Well, Marvel's trying to save their ass because after realizing how horrible of a human being Jonathan Majors is, they're like, "Hey, we're trying to rescue it. It's not going to be about him. We swear. Just like us again." Like, That's kind of like what Marvel's doing. I think it's smart for them to move away from Kang, although I do wish they just recast at this point.
Yeah, same.
Like, I could literally name at least 3 other actors that I would put in that role easily.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at least 2 off the top of my head: John David Washington and Coleman Domingo.
Yeah, Coleman would be my choice.
Be an interesting pick to throw in there. But yeah, I definitely think it's a smart move for them, and it's more from what Jonathan Majors did than fan reaction, I feel like.
Right. I think because I've been on both sides of this. I've been on like pro recast. I've also been pro get someone new. Like I think there's like I don't think there's a direction that is completely like the best route, because I think both can be very complicated, and it will be very complicated. I think having a villain that is literally about different variants, and you could so easily just replace him with a different variant like of himself. I think having a villain that we've already put in so much work into, 2 seasons of TV, a film, he had a whole film titled after him. Obviously, you know, we've sprinkled in over these course of the last 5 years, like we've been kind of building up to this idea of Kang, and it felt like we were finally kind of about to really jump into it. And I do honestly think I'm kind of okay with it though. Like I like when this news came out, I wasn't upset that I'm not seeing Kang again, and I almost think that's an issue. The fact that I'm not upset that I'm losing the main villain of this arc is kind of concerning. It makes me say, oh, maybe I wasn't invested in this side of the storyline to begin with. So maybe it's good we're kind of moving away. Maybe it's better. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I have a lot of thoughts on it, because I read the article, and it talked mostly about, like, the Kang thing in the article was almost a footnote, because the article was pretty much just about how bad Marvel is doing lately, like, in terms of trying to course correct everything. Like, they were talking about how the Marvels was the lowest grossing film of the entire franchise, how Secret Invasion did terribly, how Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, that apparently they were going to drop Kang and Jonathan Majors back just after Ant-Man came out because of
I don't believe that
critically and box office. I mean, I think that would be a stupid thing to do back then, because Kang was one of the few things that in a lot of the reviews were saying, like, oh, Jonathan Majors is really good. Like, I think it would make not a lot of sense for them to, at the time, not capitalize on the one thing that people liked from the film. But I think now, obviously, go in a different direction. I think it's fine, because Loki season 2 felt like it kind of wrapped up the character very well. Like, I feel like Loki season 2 was a really good way to move on from the character. My problem, though, is just, where do we go from here? Because the next films after Deadpool 3 are Captain America: Brave New World, Thunderbolts, Blade, and Fantastic Four. 4 films that have all been having huge script problems, huge casting problems, just having trouble getting into the filming stage at all. So for the 4 of those films, then to follow up with an Avengers 5 that also seems to be having never-ending trouble with their villains is insane. And people are saying Doctor Doom should be the villain of Avengers 5 and 6. I don't know if they should, because we're hearing that Doctor Doom is just going to be at the end of Fantastic Four. That means that we're going to go from Doctor Doom in that to already being the villain of Avengers 5 without any real setup, the way Kang had in Loki and in Ant-Man 3. And it's just, it seems like such a mess, because in the article as well, they talked about how they are still internally in Marvel Studios trying to figure out who the next Robert Downey Jr. or Chris Evans of the phases of the saga. Why are they only thinking about that now? We're halfway through Phase 5, and they're trying to build to the next Avengers films. We should already know who the face of the movies
I think that's dumb. I think that is such a dumb statement, because literally the last 5 years has been worth of just building up all these new characters and introducing all these new characters. Like if you're on a farm and like you have a garden, the planting's done. All you have to do is pick it. You have Shang-Chi, you have Kate Bishop, you have Doctor Strange, you have all of these major faces that you still have. I mean, you still have Thor, you have Loki, you have all these characters. And like if I would say one highlight of Phase 4 and 5 has been, I think they do a really good job at introducing these new characters that we enjoy.
For sure.
Right, like so many of my just favorite in the MCU have come from Phase 4 and Phase 5 now. Like, they do such a good job at that. And we're like, we don't know. You have Captain America and Spider-Man. Like, I don't understand. Of course you do. Yeah. Like, it's absurd.
But that worries me about Avengers 5 then, because if they're in the planning phase of Avengers 5 and they're like, well, who do we base the film around? Like, imagine if they were going into writing Infinity War and Endgame and they didn't have an Iron Man yet.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't know who the villain was going to be. They didn't know who the main hero was going to be. That's such a bad. I think for now, Marvel Studios needs to forget about Avengers 5 and 6 and just get these films moving. Just get these films made. Like, just try and get Captain America 4, Thunderbolts, Blade, Fantastic Four made well. And then once the 4 of them are out and maybe well received, then be like, okay, now we can start planning for Avengers. Because I think they're still trying to get Avengers 5 out by 2026.
That's not happening.
That's insane.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of the opposite, where I kind of think you just need to get Avengers 5 and 6 out, freaking move on with this saga. Because I'm excited for a lot of the current, like, the MCU stuff, but none of it's, like, I don't know if Avengers 5 is, or I guess the, like, Kang stuff was never like, oh, I'm so hyped to see, you know, this kind of, like it's always the grounded, you know, it's like your Daredevil and, like, your Deadpool and your Captain America, that it's kind of a bit separate from the main Kang stuff.
Yeah.
And I want X-Men so bad. Like, I think everyone's ready for X-Men. We're like, all right, let's take a sidebar with them. I don't know.
I agree with Connor. I think they need to focus on their other movies first. They have so many irons in the fire.
Right.
Like, it's weird that they're just focusing on Avengers 5 when they have 4 other movies that are having a lot of problems on their own that's supposed to come out before this.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, it makes no sense why they're focusing on a movie that essentially they have more time to work on than the movies that they do.
Yeah.
I would also say this should have happened a long time ago. Like, I think waiting this long for, like, for a other, like, Avengers movie is a bit strange. Like, even if you don't call it that, have a film where you, like, have all these characters in one place. Because, again, I think that's a lot of people's issues. Where, like, we're doing so much planting and so much building up and building up and building up, but there's no place to be like, okay, our crops are here and we can enjoy what we've been planning for the last 6 years now. Like, there's just none of that.
We don't know who the lineup is. Like, we don't know who the new Avengers lineup is. We haven't seen any of them interact yet.
There's too many. There are too many characters.
Too many possibilities, and
there's like 40 Avengers currently that we could have. Like, it's like I think there's a reason why we have 2 films. And like that's why I think I liked the Marvels a bit more than most people, because I kind of felt like, I don't think that movie was amazing or anything, but like it kind of felt like what the MCU kind of is, where it's like, okay, we have this character and this character and this character, and now they finally get to meet and like interact with each other, and they're back and forth. That's what I love about the MCU, and I want a little bit more of that. And again, I don't think every project needs to be part of this large grand story. I think you can have these solo things, but I think when you do have so much of your storytelling be about building things up and these different characters, you have to pay that off in some way.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think what, like, I kind of agree with you kind of about, like, I'm not against Doom. Like, I think you could introduce a villain in Avengers 5 and it'd be a good villain. Like, I don't necessarily think you always need build up, but I do think
that's what I think it should be. I think Avengers 5 needs to be a more Age of Ultron style film, where it's a villain just for that film and just kind of the Avengers figuring out who the new lineup is, just them interacting, just them meeting each other, just them working together. Then at the end of it, you do a post-credit scene for whatever, like the big Secret Wars stuff is, and then you do your 2 Avengers films to tie into that there.
Okay, interesting. I don't know. I feel like that's so long away though. Like I kind of feel like you need to wrap Secret Wars up like soon, because I think a lot of people are losing interest in that, because like it felt like we were about to enter Secret Wars like 5 times. Like,
well, I think Deadpool 3 is going to like start that for people. I think Deadpool 3 is going to be the kick that people are going to be like, oh, now I need to see Secret Wars.
Right. But then you have Captain America 4, and then you have the Thunderbolts and Blade and all the Fantastic Four, and it's like, oh, but like we're ready now. Like it feels like Secret Wars should be next year. You know what I mean? Like
there's so much stuff that they just need to start focusing on their projects.
It needs to be smaller. I think they've, and like I think we're doing that. Like I think they realize that we need to shrink down a bit and focus just on 3 or 4 projects at a time. The issue is we got too much that's currently being made for them to do that yet. Like we're not going to start seeing that for another 3 to 4 years, because we have currently like 15 projects that they're already been working on. So it's like, if you cancel these projects, like then you like go into like a Batgirl thing where it's like, well, we made this. Do we just not put it out after we worked on this for a year? Like, I don't want that. Like, I would hate for them to just cancel stuff that they've already done. Like, it's tough. I'd be very curious but like your Avengers 5. Like I've almost had this idea where like, well, maybe it's not so much a villain, but like a situation where like you do have like a multiverse thing and it cracks through the earth or something, and all these Avengers. It's like more of like a man versus nature than like man versus man type thing.
Cool. I think that's how they should do it.
Yeah.
Or not they actually do that is another.
Right. Or like it's a thing where like through the multiverse all these like other versions of their villains are coming through and they have like that's the kind of threat they really have, and then it leads into your your like Secret Wars and stuff like that, and then you get all the bonding with these characters, like a real focus on these characters working together, being a thing, and then your Secret Wars where you have to I don't know there's options.
I think that they do have a chance to really course correct, because besides Deadpool 3 and some of the TV shows, none of their films have started filming yet. So like there's a chance for them to kind of course correct what they're doing, which I mean that is also bad in itself, because you're like, well, now it's going to take so long for these movies to come out. But I think it means for a scripting phase they have a chance to really restructure and figure out what's going where, what should come out where, and like fix that.
Yeah.
That's so insane to me though. Like they're like, we're going to be filming your like Thunderbolt soon. I was like, you haven't filmed yet?
Superman Legacy started filming before Thunderbolt.
That was 4 years ago. What have you been doing?
To be fair, they were going to film in July, then the
strikes.
So they get a pass on that.
They do,
Yeah, that's fair. It's just
it's not like
a lot of these projects.
It's like they were going to film it. It just a lot of things happen.
It's been an unfortunate year for a lot, right? And
but
like
they're still making script changes. Sorry, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean like for any other franchise, like there are so many eyes on like the like Marvel stuff, or like any other franchise we might not be like, they announced this 5 years ago. Where is it? Where normally maybe that wouldn't be an issue because we're not watching it. With like the MCU, we're always watching what's going on. We're always looking at photos and all of these kind of stuff. So we have this array on like what they're doing, but like I don't know, and like that's. I guess that kind of goes into my issue with like, well, maybe don't announce as much.
No, for sure. But like that, we got the 2019 announcement at Comic-Con, and not even all our films from that announcement are out yet. Like we only got the Marvels like a few months ago. Blade and Fantastic Four from that announcement aren't out yet. And then
that was 2019.
Yeah, and then at Comic-Con 2 years ago, we got the announcement of all the extra stuff, which barely any of that has come out yet. Like it's insane.
Now I kind of want to look at this. Hold on.
Yeah, because it was at the end of it. They were like, Blade and Fantastic Four are coming down the line.
Oh gosh.
Like there's so much backlog. Like they're only doing like 2 major projects this year: Deadpool 3 and the Agatha series.
Yeah,
I'm excited for.
Okay, yeah, you're right. You're Blade and Fantastic Four.
But we have so many movies now backlogged that next year is our crowded year with other stuff. Now we have 4 more films coming?
Yeah.
4 more.
So yeah, your Blade and Fantastic Four was announced in 2019. That's insane.
Wow.
That is insane. And like look at your like Hawkeye was this schedule is kind of crazy. Hawkeye was right after Hawkeye it supposed to be Blade and Fantastic Four. That's kind of nuts.
It shows like after Thor 4 they really ran into kind of problems because it's from from after Thor 4 onwards. But I think Thor 4's reception probably made them panic a little bit,
right?
Because that film was one of the worst. I think like I thought Thor 4 was fine. I didn't love it, but I thought in terms of like the general reception to the film on social media, I think that was one of the worst they've ever gotten. So I think it's after that they started panicking. We started seeing problems with Blade, Fantastic Four, and all the next films.
Which is probably for the best, but like sometimes I almost feel like that stuff kind of makes it worse for them. Like you have like your DC where it's like, oh, everyone hates these movies. We gotta course correct the entire thing. It's like, well, no, if you just stayed on that track, you would have been better for it. I think.
But now with Thunderbolts starting filming next month, they said in the article as well they just got the Bear showrunner involved in the script for Thunderbolts, and the writer for Thor Ragnarok and Black Widow involved in Fantastic Four, which that's fine because that's in film till July anyway, or it's summer I guess just in general. But for Thunderbolts to just be getting new writers now with the filming starting in 3-4 weeks.
So I think next year is going to be another slow year for Marvel because I don't think these are coming out.
I don't think they are.
I think half of them are not going to come out.
I think Captain America 4 will.
Captain America 4 will, yeah.
That's what I mean. And like maybe they do focus on Fantastic Four, and then the other two they put it on the shelf.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Blade and your Thunderbolts has to go back to 26. I just think it has to. I mean, even like Fantastic Four, they gotta rush that. Like,
but I feel like with Fantastic Four, they could get away with rushing it, unlike Blade and
yeah. Well, Blade is a low budget. It's like 60 million, I think.
But here's the thing: with Blade, they're more behind than that.
Right. Blade. I mean, again, Blade should be so easy. Like, it's a low budget, rated R slasher vampire movie.
That's the thing you said. It's the complete opposite of Marvel. Low budget, rated R. Like, it's literally the polar opposite.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, what they need.
The only way it would be more polar opposite if it was about unicorns.
Right.
The way it would be more polar opposite.
Yeah.
Which I think is very smart. Like, I think they need to be more, like, creatively different from like everything else.
Here's the thing about the DCU. They're more hit or miss. But they at least take risks. They at least take chances.
Right. I will give it that, yeah. DC films, they feel different. They film the film feel different.
Yeah. With Marvel, like, there's been some cool projects, but for the most part, they keep it very formula-based, very...
Right.
So, I think if Marvel started taking more risks like DC, I think it will work better for them. So
and I think they tried. Like, I think this phase they were trying to do more risks, do different styles, but I think they were still kind of stuck on their same their formula. Where Moon Knight and your WandaVision and your Thor, those are all in theory different types of projects, but you could tell they were stuck on the same way of making them, which I think held them back.
You can tell they changed that when they started bringing in showrunners for the TV shows last year. You can tell they learned that way too late. That should have been something they were learning back in 2019. So,
and I think we are going to be heading towards it. And I always say this, I always have hope in these projects that we're getting better. But based on getting showrunners in here and Fantastic Four feels like it could be a very different kind of your MCU movie. Blade feels very different. I think having Daredevil go back to its roots, those are good signs. I think there are good things here. Whereas I have hope that they can turn themselves around. And I don't think, there's people being Marvel is dead, it's dead. I don't think Marvel has that much to do to get back on track. I think just a couple good projects that people are back on them. I really do think so. I mean, just your Deadpool 3 came out, people Marvel's back, baby.
Yeah.
It's
that's going to be huge, for bringing people back.
Yeah.
And I think the Agatha series will be the same thing, too.
I think that show's going to do good. Even if people don't watch it, I think it's going to be good. I have... a weird faith in that show.
I'm agreeing with you, but what I'm saying now, it's going to be like Deadpool 3 in the sense that it's going to give faith back to the Marvel.
Yeah. I'll be very curious how that show does, because I don't know, I don't think a lot of people are going to watch it, but I think it might be good.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. I think view-wise, we're not going to see crazy numbers from it, but it'll probably be good. With Agatha, I just feel like it's a bit insane to be releasing your sequel show to WandaVision almost 5 years after WandaVision came out. That should have been something as well that was fast-tracked, came out 2 years ago.
But at the same time, though, she's still being talked about, Agatha.
She is, yeah, that is true.
That's the advantage there.
I think that's going to be a one where, no one watches it when it first comes out, but then, it's oh my gosh, this show's actually really good, you have to watch it.
Yeah.
Where it's okay, they made a good thing, maybe I'll go check it out and see what I think it's going to be that kind of thing. So,
yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, I'll be very curious. And already here, we're going to be jumping into our main topic here, the reason we're all excited to talk about, which is Madam Web. Now, I want to quickly just kind of talk about what was everyone's kind of feelings on the film, and kind of your kind of thing going into the film, years prior when it was first announced, when that trailer dropped. How were we kind of feeling before seeing this movie?
Well, can I just say that the thumbnail there, can we just call attention to the fact that those costumes that were all over the marketing, that
Ocean Spray did. Yeah.
Just barely in the film.
Great costume. Gorgeous costumes, actually. I loved them.
But Matthew, you can go ahead on talk about.
First off, my first thought when I saw the trailer, I'm first off, thank God Amy Adams dropped out and Charlize Theron.
Yeah,
they were originally rumored for Dakota Johnson.
Oh wow, I didn't know
this
that.
was all the way back in 2021.
Yeah, this is
thank God came in and changed everything, because They dodged a bullet, let me tell you.
Right.
But when I saw this, I'm like, I know I have to see it. My dad's in it, so I have to see it. But I'm like, it's just, here's the thing. I don't like Venom. Well, I like Venom.
Yeah, I don't like them either.
I don't love it.
Right.
And I don't think we even need to talk about Morbius. I don't.
It was the greatest Marvel film of all time.
Of course. But I love the Spider-Man movies, so I kept an open mind on seeing that.
Right.
And just gonna leave it at that in terms of first impression.
Right.
I was actually really, really, really excited before the trailer. Once the trailer came out, I lost faith in the film.
Yeah.
But before the trailer came out, I was actually really excited for it, because when we were seeing those set photos of it set in the 2000s, we were hearing Adam Scott was in it. People were theorizing that Adam Scott was like Ben Reilly, that he was like that Spider-Man, that he was an older version of Peter Parker that's time traveled back or something like that. Like, the theories for the film were crazy and they sounded so cool. And I was like, they're going to tie that into Madam Web and Spider-Woman and all this cool stuff. Yeah. And I was like, this film really, really, really could be the turnaround for Sony. It's got a much bigger cast than we're used to with Morbius and Venom, which, I mean, like, based off the names, I was more excited for this cast than anything from Venom or Morbius. Like, I like Tom Hardy, but he was kind of the only really big cast member, I guess, in Riz Ahmed in the first one. From the Venom films, I was really interested in, whereas here I was like, Dakota Johnson, Isabel Merced, Sydney Sweeney, Evan Roberts, Adam Scott. Like, a lot of big people are in this film. Like, it's a good ensemble, and the characters they're using are really interesting characters that haven't really been seen a whole lot in outside of the comics. That it really kind of could have been a slam dunk, and the kind of the film that came out of nowhere, and people were like, "Damn, Sony Marvel's good." And then the trailer came out, and I was like, "Okay, so it's just Morbius and Venom again."
Back to square one.
Yeah, literally. I was like, all right, well, all that faith for nothing.
Yeah, like, this movie had potential. It really did.
It did. It did. And like, the pitch that I had heard for years was like, it's a Spider-Man time travel heist movie. That's what I had heard people say for years. I was like, that sounds amazing. This idea that your villain, kind of like your like Krypton plot, where it's like the villain is going back in time to kill Spider-Man when he's a baby, and all these heroes have to protect him. That sounds sick as hell. I would love that. Like, that's such a good plot. And I think maybe it was. It's very clear to me that reshoots, I think, really fucked with this movie. I think the original, like, what it was at one point, like what it was originally on paper, I think is a completely different movie than the movie we got. I would be very curious what happened like reshoots, because it's very clearly they had them. It's very clearly things were just cut out or mashed in like certain ways. It was like, oh, that's a weird choice. It was like, well, yeah, because we got rid of plot points that were originally supposed to be in the movie. But yeah, I mean, and even after the trailer had come out, like, I was still trying to hype up this movie. Like,
I remember talking about it when it came out, and I was like, "Oh, damn, you like the trailer, huh?"
I wouldn't say I like the trailer, but like there was like there was a charm to the trailer that like reminded me of like the like CW stuff, and a lot of people were like, "Well, that's not good." Was like, yeah, I mean that's fair, but like it's CW, and I kind of missed that era. Like, it kind of reminded me of like a Gotham Knight, and that's kind of what I was hoping for. Like, a lot of people didn't like that show, but like, I was hoping it was going to be like, oh, this is bad, but like, oh, but it's like a fun bad, and like your like Gotham Knights wasn't always good, but like, oh, but like you had your like Two-Face, and Two-Face was good, and this thing was good. Like, I thought there was going to be good stuff in here. I was very shocked by this movie, though. I was very because so me and you had talked about it last or like 2 weeks ago, and you're like, I'm not sure if we're gonna watch. I'm gonna watch this movie, but you ended up kind of getting turned into it, right?
Yeah, like very last minute, like day of, I was like told, "Hey, come see Madam Web tonight," and I was like, "Guess I am." I mean, the plot, the script, all that sort of stuff, huge problems, but like. The surprises for me were just all on a technical aspect. Like, the ADR and dubbing over that villain, just non-stop, where almost every time he was on screen, the dialogue coming out of his mouth did not match his mouth movements at all. The constant, like, weird zoom-ins that they do, like the camera would just randomly zoom in on a face, but it wouldn't be like the Raimi zoom-ins where, like, you know, it's a director's touch. No, it was just kind of a real last second, like, it was... I've got no words. It was just, it's like, this is why I think I would easily watch this again over Venom and Morbius. I think maybe plot wise, Venom and Morbius might be better, but just I can't think of anything technical wise out of Venom or Morbius that made me go, that was crazy. Like the editing in this film when they constantly started switching, like that final act when they were in that fight scene when they were just constantly cutting between things and Dakota Johnson's grabbing that thing like Captain America's shield, and then the big Pepsi thing is dropping on Ezekiel Sims, and one scene he's got his mask on and the next shot he's got his mask off, and there's just Sydney Sweeney spinning off of the railings, and it was so random and messy, and I don't understand how somebody like sat there in the editing suite and watched that final thing play out on their timeline and we're like, there we go, we got that film. Let's get that to the
nailed it.
Let's get that out of there. That's the film wrapped.
No, I mean I 100% agree, and like you had gone to like your film school and stuff, and you have more of a grasp on that kind of stuff. But
I don't even. I just I'm not good with that stuff at all. I just think it was super noticeable with Madam Web.
No, it really was. I think it has some of the. I think it might have the weirdest of like your editing that I've ever seen in a film. There's that aspect. Oh, the first scene, the first dream sequence with all the suits, and he has having the dreams with all the Spider-Woman jumping around. I was getting dizzy. I couldn't see them. They're
confused.
What is happening?
So disorienting.
Okay, I had to write down I mean, I feel like that's almost the worst. One of the things is I had to write down every character's name.
Yeah,
because
that's valid.
I could not tell you a single. I can almost tell you 0 things about most of the characters in this movie because they all kind of feel very generic and bland. And it's we have our 3 main girls. It's okay, but which one's which? I'll be like, I don't know.
I don't know. You can see I have Wikipedia open. Just
that's a really valid. Well, I saw that it was 3 or 4 days after the film came out, and still nobody had filled in the plot on Wikipedia, and everyone was like, "Well, it's not filled in because nobody saw the film."
No, sometimes when a movie's baggy, even people on Wikipedia is like, "No, we're good."
Yeah, we're not bothering.
Right. I kind of just want to start with I guess kind of have to start with the villain with this one because
he's my least favorite villain, I think.
Yeah.
Of the films.
Oh, he's one of the worst movie villains I've ever seen because I think mostly a lot of it just doesn't make sense to me. So he starts off the film and he shoots her mother for getting the spider, and we go through the film and I still don't understand why he wanted the spider. I don't think that's ever explained why he wants these powers. Is he sick? Does he just want to be a supervillain? Does he want to rule the world? They never say. He just I need this power now. Bye-bye. It's never
I've been saying that
no motivation. Besides finding the people who kill him in the future, there's really no motivation. What happens after that?
Yeah.
Which I didn't understand that either.
Do you just open a can of beer and enjoy your life again? There's just no clear direction.
Right.
Yeah.
But why was he getting those visions? I feel like maybe I missed that because they weren't the ones. It
says here he was bitten by a spider.
Yes, but
Spider-Man.
But
they
become those superheroes after he dies. So where did those visions come from? Is what I'm asking. Because is it the only thing I was piecing together was Madam Web was the one to kill him, and she protected them. So it's she created those heroes. I guess, but that also makes no sense to me. I don't know. Yeah. And he also went about it very stupidly, where it's I'm going to kill them for they can't kill me. I was brother, if you just don't go after them, they won't kill you. You're fine.
Paradox here, my guy.
Right. And it's so I think some things with that plot line can work, but here it just felt so obvious of a way to just not let them kill you. Just don't be bad and you're good.
Do evil things.
Right.
The logic makes no sense.
It doesn't. But the reason why I've been giving out about the technical stuff so much is because I don't want to give out about the plot because I feel like I didn't understand the plot. And I'm if I give out about the plot, did I just miss something? Because everything was coming at me so fast that I can't differentiate the beginning of the film from the end of the film or wherever things are happening. But I mean, if you guys are confused as well, I'm guessing the film just didn't explain it. Because I'm confused on all this, but I thought I just missed stuff.
Yeah.
And that's how I often am with these things, where like there's sometimes my brain just kind of spaces out at times where it doesn't like I don't get certain things, but like I do think it's a situation where it's just like we do it was either cuts or they just didn't care to put it in, and I think he's definitely one of the worst like comic book villains I've ever seen. For sure.
He could have been good. He could have been. He really could have.
It's a cool concept. Like I think having like your evil Spider-Man is kind of sick. Even though I do think it's a bit weird that it's like 20 years prior to like
it's like 2003
an actual Spider-Man, right? It's like
this is Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, I guess. Even though that makes no sense.
Maybe. I mean, that's what we heard at first, and then it's like, well, this is Andrew Spider-Man, and then it's like, oh no, this is
I think it's supposed to be Tom Holland's Spider-Man because 2003.
Yeah, 2003 would line up age-wise.
The movie comes out, at least makes a little more sense. That makes sense at least.
Right.
I can't believe I'm trying to give some sense.
I definitely think it's a thing where they were trying to fit it into one of them, and then they're finally like, "Oh no, we can't actually do any of that." So
they're like, "Well, we can't show the Spider-Man, so it doesn't really matter." Just it's somebody.
It's Tom Holland's Spider-Man for sure.
That's the one that makes the most sense. It's Tom Holland MCU, which means technically this is an MCU prequel film right here. So I've had this to your rewatch lists. Just between Captain Marvel and Iron Man 1 when you're doing your rewatch.
Yeah, it's gonna be masterpiece. It's just like Black Panther and Avengers Infinity War.
Right.
Oh my God.
I just think like so this film to me, it did feel like a prequel. Like it clearly felt like it was a prequel to characters that we love. And the issue with that
you love Madam Web and all of her.
That's the issue is like it treats itself as a prequel as we're waiting for these heroes to become these legendary heroes, but I don't know who these characters are. So why do I care that like this is their origin and like maybe if we got to see them be the heroes in the film it would be different, but we don't. You end the movie with them becoming these heroes, and it's like,
were you excited when at the very end of the film you saw Madam Web and the 3 Spider-Women all in their costumes in front of the web, in front of the iconic web?
Sick. That's the movie I was promised.
Well,
that's what I thought I was seeing.
And we're never getting the sequel because it's not going to do well at all.
No, that's the thing that drives me crazy. Is that I want to see that. I do. Like I think these actresses are cool. Those costumes are sick. I want to see these heroes saving people in their city. That is cool.
The only time we see them in costumes when they murder a guy. It's when they murder them at the beginning of the film.
These suits are really, really good. Like if they just showed up in like an MCU movie, I'd be like, all right, cool, because they didn't get their just. I would like to see them be superheroes, but like,
I think if anything, they should keep the castings because the castings are really good.
They're good. They are good, and like these actresses, for the most part, are good actresses. They just gave them nothing. That their dialogue, I'll be honest, it's bad. It's bad dialogue. Like this is like I never like to say, oh, I could make a better film because I don't like saying that. But as far as the dialogue of characters, I almost feel like I could probably write some better script for these characters. Like
I would agree with that.
There's just and like I don't know, and I think there's also like it often feels like times where like that was like their first take, and there's like all right, done.
Like,
it's like right, it's like I feel like you could have gave a better go at that scene there. Like I feel like you could have done that.
Like the opposite of David Fincher, whereas he goes for 100 takes on every scene. They're like one and done every scene.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, didn't like Madam Web, but I'm so mad the suit was just a feature version. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, for sure.
It just made no sense with this movie. And thank God the ocean spray bottle. Thank God it did its job and leaked it out.
Right.
Another score 1 for New England people.
Darth Chosen, I agree.
Yeah.
But like I will say, and this is something that me and Connor had kind of talked about, is like I kind of have a weird feeling about the movie because I think it is one of the worst comic book movies I've ever seen, just from like a technical point of view. Like it is one of those things. How did this movie get made? But I also didn't hate my time in the theater.
Yeah,
like,
I feel the same.
I almost feel like with a lot of these films, like your Fan 4 Stick and your stuff like that, where it's like, I hated that so much. Where this is like, this was bad, but I didn't hate my time here in a really weird way.
You didn't regret going to the theater. It's just
right. It feels like this is going to be a really weird thing. It's like if you give a kid a knife. If you give a kid a knife and this kid just kills a bunch of people, like all these people are dead, where it's like, that's kind of cute. That's bad. That's really bad. Actually, like he's dead over there, but it's kind of cute. It's bad. Like that's kind of the feeling I got out of it.
Okay, interesting. That's an interesting feeling again. Interesting.
Yeah, I do get what you mean. Like again, I didn't hate going to the theater. I just didn't see that ever again.
It's like with Morbius, I feel like I wasted my time. I came out of that film feeling like, why did I see that? Whereas with this, I'm like, you know what? That was a film.
Yeah. I feel like
I mean, sorry.
No, you're good.
No, and like Morbius, I kind of weird on Morbius because I'll be honest, it's not good. But I also feel like I don't know. I feel like I just don't have strong feelings on it either way. Where it's I came there, it was the most mid superhero movie ever, and I went home. With like Madam Web, like there's so many like technical stuff where it's like, how did it's clearly I think the worst movie. But again, just like you were saying, where like if you're like, all right, is it Mobius or like Madam Web? Like which one would you rather like rewatch? I'd be like probably Madam Web.
I feel like it's more like you remember it more. It's not as forgettable with Morbius.
Right, 100%.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Thoughts on how he died? I heard a lot of people memeing on the fact that he got killed by a Pepsi sign.
It just happened so quick. It was
sponsored by Pepsi. Maybe the movie was so bad Pepsi had to sponsor the film.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's one of the weirder like product placements I've seen in a minute. Like it kind of reminded me of like the Power Rangers films with like your Krispy Kreme, and they're like, oh, we have to get the donut first before we fight the crime, and then like it's so like in your face about it. Like they don't care. Like they just don't care.
It reminds me of one of the Daniel Craig James Bond films in which they drink he drinks a Heineken. Like that was at least subtle, but you can see it.
Yeah. Or like Aquaman 2 with Guinness. They had that all over the place.
Exactly. But
at least that one kind of made more sense though. Like he would actually drink that. Like I feel like the character, it fits very well with the character.
Yeah. Like apparently Madam Web drinks Pepsi. Who knew?
I guess. Thoughts on just like the individual kind of like main characters here? Like did anyone have a standout?
Can't distinguish anyone, unfortunately. They all kind of blended together in terms of characterization.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. But hats off to Sydney Sweeney. Like she's always good. She always does what she's got.
And I feel so bad for her because she clearly wanted to do more here. Like she seems like she went and read all the comics. Yeah, she loves her characters, and she was so excited. Like apparently she was in her suit less, and she was like, I need to be in the suit more, and so they gave her a scene with the suit. But like, you shouldn't have to do that. And like, there's been rumors going around where it's like I don't know if it's true, it's just rumors, but like they tricked, like when they signed on, they thought it was like the MCU.
Yeah, I keep seeing that where like in all the interviews, they're all like, yeah, I just feel to be part of the MCU. And they're like, I can't wait to be in more.
Yeah, right. It was Dakota Johnson who was doing the live with Kelly and Mark, and Kelly's like, oh, you're so excited, you get to do 15 more movies. And like Dakota's face, it's like the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme song played. As Kelly was saying that to Dakota.
Oh yeah, she's so done with this. Like even if any of these characters came back, I know she would not. You could tell she's just done. But I've also never seen her like be like proud of one of her movies. Like it always feels like she's just ready to get it all done and over with.
So
I've seen her. I mean, she was proud of an indie film she did, Cha Cha Real Smooth. She was really good.
Oh hell yeah!
But she should keep doing that and less of these movies.
Yeah,
yeah, more like indie, maybe best for her. Yeah, or just I don't know. I don't like it.
I mean, she's the parent of Hollywood royalty. Like, why aren't you begging for better roles?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and you know, like I would assume when you sign on to a thing like that, like it's a Spider-Man type movie. Like I bet on paper this is like a hell yes moment. Like you're gonna get suits and you're gonna fight villains, and like Marvel's like the biggest thing right now. Like it was, you know, when this was back in like 2021, right? So like it was. So I can just imagine your like disappointment when you're done with the movie and people have seen it and you get to wear your suits for a couple minutes. Like I can just imagine that disappointment.
Yeah, but I feel like this is the kind of movie that it's important, like when they signed on to it, because that was 3 years ago at this point. That was before Morbius. That was just after Venom. No, it was a few years after Venom 1, but I don't think Venom 2 had been out yet when they signed on to this. So like, Marvel's not doing too badly just yet. People like Sydney Sweeney have only gotten a lot more popular since then, especially in the last year or two. I feel like it's kind of a film that maybe they don't sign on to if it's today, you know?
Right.
Like, it's far down the line. They're like, no way am I signing on to that.
Right. So when I was going into the film, I kind of wanted to go in with this mindset of, is there anything I can love about the movie? Like, is there like what? Because obviously this is the type of movie that's getting so bashed. Like, going into it, I had heard the absolute worst, how this was such a bad movie. I was like, all right, what can I take out of this movie? Like, what's a positive I can take out?
Pepsi fans should go see it. If you're a fan of Pepsi, this is the film for you.
Yeah.
And it was hard. It was hard to find one that was like, oh yeah, that actually worked. I think like it's all I think there's concepts here that work. Like, I think Madame Web's powers and concept, I think, could make for a interesting superhero movie. This idea of like, I can see into the future and I can try to stop these things before they happen. On paper, could be a cool idea. I do think like they never execute it quite right, and it always comes across kind of boring. And like they kind of treat it like it's a Groundhog Day, where it's like, oh, we all just died. Now I get to go
the diner scene felt like that, yeah.
Right. The toxic, like just play Toxic. The whole Toxic song was one of the weirdest like song choices.
In the middle of a diner on a table and just start dancing.
Oh, like, these children are idiots.
You're hiding from a supervillain, so you're gonna go into a random diner and just start dancing.
Right, they are like, I get that they're hungry and they want to get food, so go get your food and then leave. Like, leave with your food. Out. Right. Go ahead.
I was looking at the screenwriters for this film. This is what they have done. This is their entire filmography. Dracula Untold.
Okay, great, fantastic masterpiece.
The Last Witch Hunter.
Yep, that's great.
Gods of Egypt.
Film. Okay, another great film there.
The Power Rangers movie, which I don't
Hell
think.
yeah.
I do unironically like that film.
Yeah,
I do love that movie.
Morbius. And then
Greatest fall.
Great job, you.
Yeah. I will say, just talking about like concepts, I did kind of like the idea of like your like CPR scene where like she's taking her everyday life and trying to equip it to her superhero life and teaching all the kids how to do it. And the way it circles back around, I thought was kind of cool. But I think the scene itself felt very bland. Like, it just felt like we were spending 2 minutes them learning like your CPR, and it's like, yeah, I don't know. Like, it's still like even the stuff I liked, it felt like needed to be better. Like, it feels like they were still kind of bad.
The person who directed this was their first film. They've done a bunch of TV shows, but they
did do Succession. They did some really good episodes of Succession.
Succession, Heroes, The Bates Motel, Ugly Betty, Dexter. Like the problem is though, a great director can't rescue a bad screenplay.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what happened here.
Yeah, writing needs to be first all the time. I feel like with something like this.
And also, I think like, and we're seeing this a lot with like our comic book movies, like we just saw it with your Aquaman, and it's even some with the Flash. But like, there's so many different versions of a movie like this, and they try to cut it together in a certain way, and I think that just makes it worse. It's like it's not a film anymore. It's 10 different films put together, glued together.
Like everybody wants their own input, and it's like all the execs, all the director, sometimes the writer, but like the editor as well. Like everybody wants their input on how this final film wants to turn out, and it means that by the end of it, nobody's really truly happy because everybody has something random in it.
Yep. I'm trying to think. Is there anything I want to add? I do just want to complain. If I'm going to be roasting the movie, like, I thought the death scene of like her officer was one of the dumbest death scenes I've ever seen, because we saw him like once. Right. Yeah. It was like they like treat it as this like huge tragedy to us, and it's like, we met him like once, guys. Like, I didn't even, when it came time to him to die, I was like, wait, who is he again? Like, I didn't even remember him.
Like, unnamed officer 2 just died. No.
Right? Oh yeah, officer number 2. No.
I mean, I guess we kind of have to mention like Ben Parker, right? Because I mean,
Adam Scott, yeah.
I would have liked it a lot more if they were a little bit more subtle with all their non-stop Peter Parker future references in every single line of dialogue, where he was like,
"None of the responsibility." Wink, wink.
It's like, ooh, I wonder what that means. I wonder what that's alluding to. At least he didn't have the fortune cookie say it. I was convinced that he was going to take out the fortune cookie and it was going to be like, with great power comes great responsibility or something.
That's what they should have done. It would have been the best writing of the film.
Yeah.
Just that fortune cookie. I don't mean the actual scene in which that would happen.
Also, like, yeah, Ben Parker was weird. And, like, I think everything with Ben and, like, Mary, I think there was supposed to be a lot more of them. Like, I think they were supposed to be a bigger part. There's that scene where... Yeah, no. And there's that scene where, like, she drops the kids off with him and it's like, I don't know what's going on, but I guess I'll do it. It's like, why? No. This is crazy. What do you don't question any of this? Like,
I'm just gonna go on with my day.
Right. And like she's supposed to, the police are after her throughout this movie, and that's never picked up. Like they think she kidnapped 3 teenagers, and it's like, nope, she can just go around anywhere without any issues.
I'm gonna go get some groceries.
Yep. Oh well.
It was just bad.
It was a bad movie. Yeah. Do we have any final thoughts on the film? Is there anything that we didn't mention that you guys would like to talk about?
I think that, I mean, I know the whole thing is that, like, this is a prequel, they're teasing a sequel, but Sony, this is the 4th Sony film that is just not hit, like, 4th Sony live action film in this Sony universe, whatever, that is not hit for me. I think even if the film got a sequel that was more focused on them as heroes, I don't think it'd be good. I think we've learned that Sony just can't handle these characters.
I think Sony needs to start taking risks with their writers and who they hire, because keeping the same people aren't working, yet they're still doing it. So
I think this is going to be a wake up call for them to restart things. Like I think
I would hope so.
I think every movie, like we have the Donald Glover film, and we have your L1, right? We have all these kind of films that they're working on. I know you have.
Elmer was canceled a while ago. I think they pulled out of that back in September.
And then they said that it's back on, apparently.
Did they?
Like a month ago. Yeah.
I thought it was gone again.
No, unfortunately.
Last month, originally.
Yeah, I wish Sydney's Canada will get used at some point. I feel so bad for Sydney.
Down. Yeah. I would be very down if some of these characters came back under different circumstances.
That Pepsi sign, though.
That's part of the film.
Maybe that will come back.
That'll
just a villain of Spider-Man 4. The Pepsi sign's a villain of Spider-Man.
The villain just needs to be drinking a cold Pepsi, say, this is refreshing, and then the sign hits.
Right.
It's the
end. Yeah. Weird movie. Connor, I also, since joining the podcast, this is very funny that this is our first film that we get to talk about.
Yeah. It was after one, but that was more like a DC.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true, I guess. Yeah, Madam Web was a Madam Webbing, I guess. So yeah, that's where we're gonna be wrapping up today's episode. I want to give a big thank you to Matthew for joining us today. Matthew, where can people find you?
You can find me on my own YouTube channel at Matthew Anzalone. I will be live reacting to the SAG Awards on Saturday. And you will not want to miss the superhero costume I'm in for.
Ooh. Is it Madam Web?
No.
Darn it.
Madame Web.
I didn't earn enough Ocean Spray Cranberry Juice points.
I don't think Pepsi or Ocean Spray brand, unfortunately.
It's actually Boys.
Ooh.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that's going to be exciting. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram under the same name, too.
Nice. Oh, yeah. I will link both down below for if anyone wants to check out your content, they can easily do so. Connor, what are you working on currently?
I'm actually doing pretty well in the video space, but I've got video going up tonight on the new Superman DC logo that we saw for the DCU, and just kind of talking about if we think Kingdom Come is going to be a big part of the Superman stuff. So yeah,
very fun. Very excited. And on my side of things, my show with Darth is back this week. We're talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender live action.
Oh, yeah.
Very excited. As soon as I'm done with this, I'm about to jump on those because I'm very excited and very nervous. I'm nervous, but excited at the same time. But guys, again, thank you so much. And we will see you on the flip side. Bye bye.